Okay, so following the setup of connection, gesture, perspective, what I've shown you over here would be one additional area that you can kind of push if you feel like once you're doing all those three things, you could use just a bit more rhythm. And I'll show this to you in examples, but to set that up, we'll do a couple examples of these steps. But first thing, when I do these examples, what you'll see me do is at the very end, use the symmetry line of each part to see if I can create one larger curve that helps to tie them all together. So consider the symmetry line of the head, the symmetry line of the neck, and the symmetry line of the rib cage. Three possible areas that you could also use to create one larger rhythm or flow line. Okay, so let's try that on this one over here, just so you could see an example. So first step, sphere for my head, egg for your head, whatever you like using, it doesn't really matter. You get a loose gesture for my neck, but pushing forward. So I'm thinking of that profile model here where we had the rib cage counterbalanced to the neck, counterbalanced to the head. So put a little jaw shape on here just to give us a larger proportion. I'm not going to be worried about drawing the head. And then my rib cage, so let's just do our shape. So that's my neck shape. Maybe first it's best just to get that angled 2D shape. And then rib cage is here. And even though it's difficult to see, looking past the contour, what would be happening here is that the cervical spine goes this way, and then the rib cage at the thoracic spine would go the opposite way. So there's my three parts. Practicing this can be, difficult enough. Now, done. Well, what's the gesture of the neck? Kind of looks like my tilt for the head is leaning away from me. So I wonder if I could push this to be more of an S curve. So I'm thinking of that as, it's a weak S curve, but it's an S curve all the same. And then maybe this could be pinching a little bit. Right, so I'm thinking of, sometimes you'll see me add that little triangle. That's the underplane of the jaw. That's called the canopy of the jaw. So this area where I can collect fat. Maybe I'll make this a C curve to show that that's pinching a little bit more. So what I'm trying to show or connect with is this little model over there. Once I have that, I've done my connection for shape and gesture. So I need to do some perspective. So I'm wrapping the neck here. I think that would line up kind of right across the ear. So that's connecting. We'll put a jaw shape in just to complete how that would tie in. The neck here overlaps. So I'm always looking to do one or two of those. Both if possible, right? But anytime one shape hits another shape, to begin to describe them as form, I need to do one of those things or both. Both is better. For example, so that's done. That for me, that lives together. Those all tie together. Down here into the rib cage. So that's overlapping. So my C curve comes into the rib cage and then wraps to the rib cage. So it's going to connect with the top portion or top area of that form. Like it's plugging in, it's wedging, to use a Bridgman term. So overlap becomes a wrap. Here, you could do the same thing. This could overlap, wrap back in. That gives us the drop of the neck. So remember, your necks are lower in the front, higher in the back. And then the last would be, if I can, I'll look for longer rhythms on the side. So like that S curve that I made for the stretch of the neck has a nice movement into the back that makes one big S curve. Or here we get on the inside, 3 C curves. Now the last thing that I was sharing was that center line. So center line could be here. Where's the symmetry line of this face? Might not work as great in this one as I'd like, but I will try to see this line, how it could relate to the neckline, and then into the rib cage line. So there's not a lot of opportunity in this one for connection between those as a long rhythm, but to come back at the end and still think of the symmetry line of each does give me a really valuable notation. And that notation is the degree to which these are all turned. So the rotation of the head is 3/4 almost profile, as is the neck, as is the rib cage. Again, no anatomy at all, but more important than expressing all the muscles. Like you could see in the beginning with some of the early inspirations that I showed you. Sometimes the muscle is something that creates lack of realism or lack of anatomy, in the sense that it might help us understand the legibility of forms. Try this another time. Let's try it up here. So we have kind of looking down. Head. I'm gonna do my jaw to start out here. So it gives my one big shape. Neck. Stretching on the back in this one. So I'm gonna go right into the gesture of that shape. And then pinching in the front. So C curve. I'm going to do my wrapping line so you can see how that ends. And then here's my connection into the rib cage. So you see, I did all those steps that I showed you, but much faster. You could find them all here still. The overlap, the shape, the wrapping here. Let's push it inside and kind of wrap it on that skull. And what I'm hoping that it gives in the end is that larger sense of cohesion between the parts. And then last would be my symmetry. So symmetry line of the head faces this way. So now the head is looking in that direction. Neck is doing the same. Rib cage doing the same. To show you some other examples, let's do one here. Let's do this last one here. Okay, so head. I'm gonna do an egg shape in this one. So let's do our overall form of the head as an egg. Gesture, side to side pinch. So look at that big S curve here. That would relate to the drop of the shoulders. And look how we're getting this nice expressive quality of tilt head here, tilting the neck this way, tilting the shoulders that way. That's a quality of anatomy that I think tons of people miss. Those three tilts that we talked about a little bit earlier. Shape, 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 rib cage down here. Neck creates that transition and a cool expression between the three parts. We get a lot of emotion from that, even if you strip the features out. And now I'm going to do my connection. So overlap a little bit more clearly. Overlap on this side. Here, this wraps in. So that's pushing forward. And then we'll overlap that rib cage and make sure that feels like it's tucked in there. Now let's try to find that center symmetry line. Symmetry line of the face is different from the tilt, but here it's pretty close. So it's looking off this direction. And then the neck, doing something similar. So here's a good opportunity to get a big rhythm line. From here to here to the front of the neck. So that kind of gives me that big S curve. That would be connecting the three symmetry lines. Right? Doesn't always happen, but when it does, it gives that really beautiful quality of relation or relational rhythm that develops a nice feeling of continuity between the three parts. So that would be taking our initial steps and just outlined here, the shape, the gesture, and its perspective, and then showing a few examples to give you how that would all work together in a more practical sense.